Right, we're a little bit late and we had to scramble to add things to the agenda, but let's start with the deduplication of that queue. I'm going to clean up my screen a bit. So we had an incident yesterday, or I don't know, the beginning of the week. And what happened was a bunch of jobs got dropped on a sidekick queue, and that sounds very familiar to incidents we had last year. The reason this started happening, where's the incident issue? I want that open as well. Just a second, it's really unprepared.
I'm also just adding the links to the agenda for people to see.
Where is the epic? Let me share my screen now. So during the incident, we saw, this is the comment I was referring to that made me bring up the issue. So what happened was there was a user that did some transfers of projects or something like that, something that requires recalculating authorizations, and that scheduled a whole bunch of jobs at the same time that Sidekick would need to get through. We had this problem in the past, and like a workaround for that was like make sure that these jobs are idempotent and deduplicate the jobs when they're being scheduled at the same time. So if a job is in the queue to recalculate the authorizations of a user, and we try to enqueue another job for the same user, we'll just skip the next one and rely on the single job that is already in the queue, because that would be the same work. When we started moving loads from the primary database to the replicas for Sidekick, we disabled deduplication for that job, because the jobs could count on the replica being up to date, and that might be different for the job that is scheduled second in line. So as you can see on this graph on my screen here, we dropped all of these jobs that had this feature to read from the replica enabled. We dropped all these jobs on the queue, and we saw that there were a whole bunch of them that were duplicates. That's the purple line, and then this other colored line is all the jobs that were the first one for a single user to be scheduled. So if we were able to deduplicate jobs still, then that would have, this would be the amount of jobs that we had to process, but instead we were doing the sum of both lines. So that's why I suggested to Manoy, who added this worker in the first place, a way we can have our cake and eat it too, by using a different way of deduplication. By not using the replica feature that checks the timestamp, that checks if a replica is up to date, because we know we scheduled these jobs in the future, like a little bit. So we can actually still deduplicate them in this case. And I suggested a different way to make the queries go to replica without having to check the replication delay of the replica. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, regarding that, I just pinged Manoy on the issues, since I was involved in the merge request and so on, and I added it to the rapid action, but I'm not quite sure that's the correct process to do that. the graphs show me that it's definitely worth doing, and Stan also mentioned it in the Slack thread yesterday. So I feel comfortable asking Manoj to do this. Anybody has
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
I think since it's already part of the work that's been identified, it contributes to helping resolve that. And I think because it's like it's framed in the sense of the 6 things that were already recommended. So I think that seems appropriate.
Yeah,
And it looks like it'll have a significant difference on the work.
Yeah, especially since we know this work already. We know the work to be done. We've been through this. Part of that's kind of on me because I did review that merge request, and yeah, I didn't think that I didn't connect the dots that this is the same work, even even if it's scheduled differently. So yeah.
Oh, it's been challenging because there's been quite a lot of change on those workers already. Like they've been making such good progress about improving the state of the workers. I think it's just, we can't expect to catch absolutely everything, but at least we know that this is another thing that can be done to try and resolve the problem that's happening there.
There is also an issue open for allowing deduplication for all kinds of jobs that have this data consistency delayed set on them. But this is a quicker win for a job that we know schedules a lot of duplicates in some cases. So I think it makes sense to prioritize that one in a special case.
For sure.
Anything else?
Awesome. Thank you, Bob.
Regarding this?
Not that I can think of, but I'll check later how the progress is going here and make sure that people are aware of it.
The other thing I wanted to maybe bring up, but that's more of a fun project for me to do. What was the epic again? I think I already added to the agenda doc.
525.
Right. The fun, recently we started calculating error budgets for feature categories and stage groups, and this has been great because people are starting to improve their features. And what I think is even more cool is that people started to contribute to the SLIs themselves in the Runbox repository in the service catalog. So this currently only works for groups that have like a feature category that is mapped to a service. For example, the pages SLIs already have a feature category marked on them, and that contributes to the error budget of the package group, release group. Yeah, the release group, I think. So they're interested in improving the visibility of that service, and they are defining SLIs and improving SLIs that we already have by adding metrics, changing the service definition together with us. This is not something that's currently possible for everybody that is contributing to the Rails monolith, because yeah, that's like a single service and several feature categories come out of that. And what we're talking about in this project 525 is making a generic way for people to add metrics that would feed into their error budget and allowing them to customize it on the fly. The first one that we would be working on is the request duration, which is currently capped at 1 second. So a request that's faster than 1 second gets a point for a good app text. The other ones get pinged for that. But that doesn't apply for that's not correct for all requests. For example, getting a JWT token should be way faster than 1 second. And on the other hand, getting the trace of a job or a long pull or whatever can be slower because the users aren't waiting for it. So In this project, we would allow the stage group to define these thresholds themselves on endpoints. But while we're doing that, we would also set up a framework for them to add new SLIs to the services we have. And so we from the infrastructure side of things can monitor things that users care about, because product knows what users care about. That's the gist of it. Well, just kind of a ramble. I think it's going to be a fun project to do. And we might be able to reduce some of the metric cardinality that we have, because I'm thinking of using mostly counters for that stuff instead of histograms with several buckets. Yeah.
Yeah, and I already see that there's comments on there from people on the product development side. So I'm also quite interested to see how we can get this one going. While it's not just about agreeing that some people can have a slower response time because the customers don't mind so much about it, it's also about balancing that with what the infrastructure can actually cope with as well. But I think it's nice to at least be able to have that conversation with people, because again, it drives home more about how they're using the system. But we're able to engage in a conversation to be able to say, well, we can increase it, but this is how we're going to have to do it, and this is what we can cope with, and this is what we shouldn't be coping with. Whereas at the moment, there's not really much of that conversation, because it's a case of, well, it's 1 second, well, it's nothing.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to move the 10-second upper limit that we have on our current Puma component SLI for the web, Git, and API fleet. Like, that's always going to be a hard limit. Perhaps we can even lower it. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't understand. How are we going to enforce that? Like, if we are giving, I'm up for giving this freedom, just to be clear. Like, I think this is a good way forward. I'm just not sure I follow. How are we going to make sure that people don't go and set 10 seconds, I'm fine, this is the max, and so
like right now we have that request duration SLI that doesn't get factored into the stage groups because the cardinality would explode. Yeah. And we can't. But that one has two thresholds, 1 second and 10 seconds. I think we're going to add validation inside the Rails application, just like we have for feature categories on endpoints. If a feature category doesn't exist anymore, the test will fail. Here, if you define a threshold that is longer than what we say it can be, then the test will fail. That's my idea for enforcing that right now, but I haven't written that up in an issue. I wanted to get some input on the bigger picture first, but that's like a detail that I did mention in the epic. Like, we can't just, it's not a free-for-all, 60 seconds is fine.
And the way, and I was also thinking that in order to get an SLI change sort of approved into the system, that it's got to come through, it's got to come through a conversation with us. So if people want to increase that, let's talk about it, let's engage with them, let's see what is a reasonable value to set. For exactly that, like having everyone set it to 10 is just not, it's not what we want them to do.
Yeah, I think setting that threshold should go through us. There's also, like, we're going to have to figure out a way to get this going. Perhaps we're going to do like we did for the feature categories, and we do a first pass of the most popular things that we set thresholds on. And that can then later be adjusted, and all the rest just stays at the 1 second that we currently have. And if they want to change that, then it will have to go through review.
I was just almost going to set everything at 1 second, and then if they want to change it, because some people have highlighted that they want it to be changed, but not a lot of people have said that. I know once we give the ability to do it, more people will, but yeah, I thought there was a decent first pass is just set everyone's to 1.
And can we maybe consider, this is just a suggestion without me knowing any technical details about like how this is going to be implemented, but I kind of feel this needs to be attacked from 2 sides, so from 2 levels. It's fine to do it in the application like you're proposing, Bob. I think that's the right way to start, but I'm still concerned with, the test will fail, people will do random stuff with tests at some point, right? Like I'm not saying someone will do it right now. I'm saying we're going to grow, right? Like things are going to change. So it would be good if we have two levels of protection. So one is we set those goals inside of the Rails app, but it would be also really good if we find a way for our infrastructure to automatically check, right? Like whatever is being input there. So on, I don't know, when we roll something out, when we deploy something, right? Like emit a metric and then alert or fail or prevent from the deploy from going forward. So just to get to a point where we have, you know, self-serve, which is great, but also a gate where we say that our infrastructure can't take more than whatever workaround someone might have placed there.
Are you talking about this single SLI that we're talking about, the request duration, or are you talking about SLIs in general?
Well, I'm talking about this one specifically now.
That's a very good point. I think at the first, like, we currently have that gate in the form of the SLI that we have. If we would see that too many requests would be slower on a deploy, we will just, like, QA will fail, hopefully on staging, we'll see stuff going wrong and we'll stop the deploy. I don't think that's going to change. Like, I think we're going to still have an overall thing. We don't want all of the, we will still grade requests in a general sense, but we'll have a better visibility into the features themselves on top of that. So I think this is going to be adding more layers. It's not going to replace an entire layer.
I almost feel like there needs to be a budget for this budget. You know, like if you say everyone has this much and you can go up to maximum of 10 seconds, let's use that as an example. We'll add more things to the application. So this thing is going to grow, but our infrastructure supporting all of this is probably not going to grow at the same rate. So we need to say that, you know, if you have a bucket of 60 seconds total to spend, you can only have, you know, 6 groups set 10 seconds, everyone else gets 0, right? Like that's the level.
So it's almost like you're summing up all of the duration thresholds and saying, well, the total value has to be 500. And in order to get it over 500, you need to provide more infrastructure before it can be.
We also need to take, like, it's not just the groups that are, like, some groups have 50 endpoints. They need to spend, they spread their bucket over their 50 endpoints. But what if one endpoint is super popular and others get hit twice a month? Like, this all stuff to factor in, which is already caught by a general request aptex SLI. So, but it would be good to figure out a way to catch this stuff sooner, like before they set a number.
Yeah. I can imagine a bug in Rails somewhere and this doesn't get...
Impossible.
No, it's not possible, right? But let's say in this impossible scenario, when a bug gets introduced, limits get, you know, ignored or something like that. We'll just, I mean, I'm hoping we're going to fail in early environments, but at the same time, I think it's also impossible for that not to happen in staging, right? So, so it would be good to have like another layer of protection here, or think about it at least.
I'm going to take a note of that on the Epic as well. I don't think, like, for this project, it's going to matter, because this project is not about replacing what we currently have, which already guards us against that. But I think in the future we might want to, like, unify both, and then we definitely need to think about that.
Cool. And naively, like I'm thinking of the world where the application is actually going to emit metrics and inform the underlying infrastructure. This is how you need to scale. With Kubernetes, a lot of these things are possible. It's just a lot of these things are also hard to do. So, you know, like it would be outstanding if we get to that point at some point in time. Cool, thanks, Bob.
Is there anything else we want to demo this morning? Awesome. Well, if not, thanks so much. Hope you all have a productive rest of your day. And for those taking Friends and Family Day tomorrow, hope you have a good day.